The Senate will come to order. Order of Business 4, reports of committees.
Mr. President, your Committee on Health and Wellness, to which were referred Senate Bills numbers 3 and 5, has had the same under consideration and begs leave to report the same back with the recommendation amend and do pass as amended. Signed, Senator Fabian Dignate, Chair. Mr. President, your Committee on Public Safety and Security, to which were referred Senate Bills numbers 1 and 2, has had the same under consideration and begs leave to report the same back with the recommendation do pass. Signed, Senator Melanie Scheibel, Chair. End of reports.
Order of Business 9, motions, resolutions, and notices.
Assembly Concurrent Resolution Number 2, introduced by the Assembly Committee on Legislative Operations and Elections, authorizes certain reimbursement for travel. End of resolution.
Are there any amendments?
There are none.
Senator Cannizzaro.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would move to adopt Assembly Concurrent Resolution Number 2.
You've heard the motion. Are there any remarks?
Thank you,
Senator
Mr. President.
Cannizzaro.
Thank you, Mr. President. Assembly Concurrent Resolution Number 2 provides certain reimbursement for travel expenses of legislators.
Any further remarks? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. The resolution is adopted and ordered transmitted to the Assembly.
Assembly Concurrent Resolution Number 3, introduced by the Assembly Committee on Legislative Operations and Elections, authorizes certain reimbursement for legislator security. End of resolution.
Are there any amendments?
There are none.
Senator Cannizzaro.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would move to adopt Assembly Concurrent Resolution Number 3.
You've heard the motion. Are there any remarks? Senator Cannizzaro.
Thank you, Mr. President. Assembly Concurrent Resolution Number 3 provides funds so that legislators may be reimbursed for expenses related to security, as that has become something that we do need to be ever present and aware of, and will allow for the reimbursement for those types of expenses.
Any further remarks? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. The resolution is adopted and ordered transmitted to the Assembly. Senator Cannizzaro.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would move that the persons noted on the sheet at your desks be accepted and accredited press representatives, and they be allowed use of appropriate meeting facilities in the legislative building.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Senator Cannizzaro.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would move that all necessary rules be suspended, reading so far considered, first reading, rules further suspended, and that Senate Bills numbers 1 and 2, just reported out of committee, be declared emergency measures under the Constitution and placed on third reading and final passage for this agenda.
Senator Cannizzaro has moved that Senate Bills number 1 and 2 be declared emergency measures under the Constitution. Are there any remarks? Senator Cannizzaro.
Thank you, Mr. President. We are requesting that these bills be declared an emergency measure so that we may be compliant with the expeditious nature of this special session and keep bills moving along.
Any further remarks from the floor? This is a 2/3 vote. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Mr. President, 1 minute recess, please.
Okay, we will take a 1-minute recess. The Senate is back in order. We are back on order of business 9. Senator Cannizzaro.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would move that all necessary rules be suspended, reading so far had considered first reading, rules further suspended, and that Senate Bills numbers 3 and 5, just reported out of committee, be declared emergency measures under the Constitution and placed on the second reading file for immediate consideration of the committee amendments.
Senator Cannizzaro has moved that Senate Bills number 3 and 5 be declared emergency measures under the Constitution. Are there any remarks? Senator Cannizzaro.
Thank you, Mr. President. Again, this motion will allow us to move expeditiously with adopting the amendments from committee and placing this bill on second reading to keep it moving along.
Are there further remarks on the floor? Again, this is a 2/3 vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. We are now on to order of business 12, second reading.
Senate Bill 3, introduced by the Senate Committee on Health and Wellness, revises provisions relating to public assistance. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate Assembly, to enact as follows, Section 1 under Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
Amendment number 1, proposed by the Senate Committee on Health and Wellness.
Senator Donate.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to dispense with the reading of the amendment.
There are no objections, so ordered. Senator Donate.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to adopt the amendment.
You've heard the motion. Senator Donate.
Thank you, Mr. President. Amendment 1 to Senate Bill 3 deletes the appropriations in sections 14 and 15.
Are there any further remarks on the amendment? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion is carried. The resolution is adopted and ordered transmitted to the Assembly. Okay, the Senate has ordered reprinted and engrossed into the general file.
Senate Bill 5, introduced by the Senate Committee on Health and Wellness, makes revisions relating to health care. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate Assembly, to enact as follows, Section 1 under Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
Amendment number 2, proposed by the Senate Committee on Health and Wellness.
Senator Donate.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to dispense with the reading of the amendment.
There are no objections, so ordered. Senator Donate.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to adopt the amendment.
You've heard the motion. Senator Donate.
Thank you, Mr. President. Amendment 2 to Senate Bill 5 increases the percentage to the Nevada Health Authority may use for administrative program costs to not more than 3.5%.
Any further remarks on the amendment? Seeing none, those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion is carried. Senate Bill 5 is ordered reprinted, engrossed, and to the general file. We are now on order of business. Oh, I'm sorry, Senator Cannizzaro.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would move that all necessary rules be suspended, that the reprinting of Senate Bills numbers 3 and 5 be dispensed with, and that the Secretary be authorized to insert the amendments just adopted by the Senate, and that the bills already declared emergency measures under the Constitution be placed on general file for this agenda.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. We are now on order of business 13, general file.
Senate Bill 1, introduced by the Senate Committee on Public Safety, revises provisions governing the short-term lease of a passenger car. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate Assembly, to enact as follows, Section 1 and to Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
There are none. Section 3, this act becomes effective upon passage and approval. End of bill.
Senator Orenshaw.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 1 authorizes, rather than requires, a short-term lessor to require proof of insurance as a condition for the lease of a passenger car. Mr. President, the measure did pass unanimously today in the Select Committee on Public Safety and Security. I urge its passage.
Any further remarks from the floor? Secretary will open the roll. Anyone wish to change their vote? Secretary will close the roll. Yeses are 21, and noes are 0. The bill has received a constitutional majority, is declared passed, and ordered to the Assembly.
Senate Bill 2, introduced by the Senate Committee on Public Safety and Security, revises provisions relating to legislative affairs. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate Assembly, to enact as follows, Section 1 under Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
There are none. Section 6, this act becomes effective upon passage and approval. End of bill.
Senator Pizzina.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 2 clarifies that the proceeds from the sale of food or other items in any building maintained for the use of the legislature or the Legislative Council Bureau must be deposited in the legislative fund. The bill additionally provides that the organization of the Nevada Revised Statutes into titles by the Legislative Council does not constitute a legislative determination for certain purposes. And finally, the bill places a specified parcel of land under the supervision and control of the legislature.
Any further remarks? Secretary will open the roll. Anyone wish to change their vote? Secretary will close the roll. Yeses are 21 and noes are 0. The bill has received the constitutional majority, is declared passed and ordered to the Assembly.
Senate Bill 3, introduced by the Senate Committee on Health and Wellness, revises provisions relating to public assistance. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows. Section 1 into Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
There are none. Section 18 into Section 18. End of bill.
Senator Canizaro.
Thank you, Mr. President. For so many Nevadans, the idea of being able to provide food to their families is a tough one. It's expensive, and maybe they have a job that doesn't pay them enough to buy food. And there are programs that allow for that to happen. And if you have never been in a situation where you are counting the dollars or cents that are right in front of you, hoping that there is enough to buy the item that you need to buy, then you are very lucky, because a lot of us are a lot closer to that situation than we are to any other. And the idea that being that close to needing assistance in order to feed your kids is something that is very real for many Nevada families, and probably people that we all know and love or live near or work with, or who are family members of our own. And I think one of the things that we have seen recently was an attempt to hold hostage kids who are hungry for political reasons. And that is just an unacceptable place for us to be. It's an unacceptable place for us not to find reason to act. And so in some of the conversations regarding the federal government shutdown and the decision not to fund SNAP benefits for hundreds of thousands, over 500,000 Nevadans, was a cruel one. And unfortunately, the legislature has very limited ways in which we can address that if we are not in a legislative session. And I know that there has been a lot of conversation around, well, couldn't you just declare a fiscal emergency and sweep money from the rainy day funds? The problem with that is that we can sweep money from a rainy day funds in a fiscal emergency, but those funds just bolster current appropriations in the general fund. They don't go to a program that would allow us to put that money towards people, to allow us to put food on the table for families. And that is one of the struggles that we have had in the last few weeks in attempting to figure out, like, how do we help Nevadans feed their kids? And so what Senate Bill 3 does is provide a mechanism that will establish the Silver State General Assistance Program. And what that is a state mechanism to allow for funding in the event of an extraordinary circumstance, for there to be agreement between the governor's office and the legislature through the interim finance committee to give some money from the unrestricted general fund balance and to put it to use for Nevada families so that they can get immediate assistance and we are not left with limited ways in which to address that. Now, I am proud of this body in the form of the interim finance committee, and grateful to the chair of our interim finance committee, who has done a remarkable job alongside a request from the governor's office to put money towards food banks. That was a mechanism that we found fit to provide for food security in a situation where we did not have the ability to get dollars to Nevada families. But being able to provide that type of assistance is not only more efficient and the best way to feed families and the best way to deal with the situation that we had, It is also something that is important for our economic stability. And so in the course of that conversation, it became my prerogative to figure out what the right mechanism was to set up a system that would allow us to address the next time, because I believe that there will be a next time, where we may be found in a situation where Nevadans are caught in the crosshairs of political rhetoric at the national level. And that is just an unacceptable place to be without action. And so Senate Bill 3 is that action. It allows us to set up a way for us to address an extraordinary circumstance with the collaboration between the governor's office and IFC to take those dollars and put them to work for Nevadans. This was something that I knew we had to find a solution to, and so I had reached out to the governor's office and asked for this to be part of our special session agenda. And we've had great cooperation from the Department of Social Services to come up with this program that I think solves that issue so that we are not in this position next time. This is such a critical piece of legislation, and I'm very proud of the work that has gone into this, and I would urge all of my colleagues here to vote yes. Thank you, Mr. President.
Any further remarks? Secretary will open the roll. Anyone wish to change their vote? Secretary will close the roll. Yeses are 21, noes are 0. The bill has received the constitutional majority, is declared passed and ordered to the Assembly.
Senate Bill 5, introduced by the Senate Committee on Health and Wellness, makes revisions relating to health care. The people of the state of Nevada represented in the Senate Assembly do enact as follows. Section 1, end of Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
There are none. Section 42, end of Section 42, end of bill.
Senator Cannizzaro.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise in support of Senate Bill 5. Senate Bill 5 has various provisions from a very important and critical piece of legislation that we actually addressed in the last legislative session, which was Senate Bill 434, which designated certain centers of medical excellence. And what this is a grant program that allows for entities that are providing critical care here in Nevada, things like specialties, things like extended ability to get health care here in the state, to allow for them to come in here and to provide services to Nevada families. For anyone who has had a family member that finds themselves in a situation where you may need to seek care out of state, you know how hard that can be. That is something that a lot of families face here in Nevada because we have critical healthcare shortages, and that is something that I think everyone in this body is well aware of. And so Senate Bill 5 sets up a grant program, $60 million, that will allow for this state to work towards building out the healthcare infrastructure, to bring in specialists, to bring in doctors, and to bring in practices and physicians and areas of expertise that we do not have here in state, so that we can serve Nevadans here in Nevada, so they can be alongside their supports, their family, their friends, their communities, so that they can get better, and so that they can be surrounded by their loved ones in times of need. This is something that we absolutely have to work on, and I believe in this very strongly, and I'm glad that this is part of our discussions in this special session, because this is a critical need. This is something that Nevadans have to have. There are also parts of Senate Bill 5 that allows for streamlined procedures and applications for licensure for physicians here in this state, and to allow for expedited hospital accreditation. And those are also important pinch points in our healthcare delivery system. And these were pieces of the governor's healthcare bill that came to us the last legislative session that are really directed at ways in which we can help to make sure that we are delivering necessary healthcare to Nevadans. And so I think that these are two really critical pieces to making sure that we are doing what is best for Nevada families to be able to access that health care. And so I would urge my colleagues to vote yes on Senate Bill 5 because it is seeking to address some of the shortages in the healthcare system that we find ourselves with here in the state. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Hansen.
Thank you, Mr. President. I actually rise and would like to question whoever the bill's sponsor is. We have not had an opportunity to read this bill. I think it was a mistake for us to suspend the rules. There is apparently a controversy in it, and I would like from the bill's sponsor or somebody on the committee to address the question, does this allow some possibility of funding Planned Parenthood or any other government-type agency or private agency that provides abortion services?
Senator Cannizzaro.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 5 is seeking to address, again, shortages in healthcare providers. We currently have in the state healthcare providers that do provide reproductive healthcare services, and this would allow for a small amount of money, 2%, which is just over $1 million, to be allowed to for entities to submit for funds to allow for those services to continue here in the state of Nevada where those shortages exist.
Thank you, Mr. President, for allowing that explanation. However, that does mean that if I support this bill, I am offering up to $1 million of taxpayer funding for abortions. So I urge a no vote on Senate Bill 5 because of that specific provision in this bill. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Titus.
Thank you, Mr. President. I unfortunately do indeed have to rise in opposition of this bill. You heard us very early on when we were suspending the rules, and we have been willing to do that because we're going to hear these bills either today, 2 days, or 3 days, and the fact that we did suspend them so we could put this on third read to move this on, I was supportive of that. But at the same time, again, then sometimes really close views of these bills have not been able to be done. And fortunately, we have folks who have had a chance to look at it and sound the alarm on this bill not that long ago. Having said that, the specific area of concern, which I was not aware of until, again, it was brought to my attention, that in Section G on page 10, it says to the extent that these, as our majority leader just mentioned, 2% of the available funds, about $1 million, will be then diverted to certain areas that specifically are outlined in our president's bill, the one big beautiful bill as identified here. And so for that, the rest of this bill I totally support, and I agree with the majority leader said about access to care and the need for providers. But when we are in a small little paragraph that nobody really knew what 71113 was until we actually had time and somebody sent it to us, what it really does, I have great concerns about circumventing what our government has said, and so unfortunately I'm going to have to be a no on this bill also.
Senator Cannizzaro.
Thank you, Mr. President. I again rise in strong support of Senate Bill 5. We have to be cognizant of all the ways in which healthcare is being delivered here in this state, and there are critical services that are being provided to Nevadans that we have to preserve. If you think about cancer screenings, if you think about birth control, if you think about STI testing, these are the kinds of services that we are talking about. And again, these are grant dollars that can be utilized to ensure that we have access to health care. I cannot stress how important it is that if you are going to talk about access to health care, you have to talk about all access to health care. And again, these are grant dollars that may be applied for and that may be awarded and that go to things like making sure that when you go to the doctor for your yearly cancer screening, that they catch that. That is what this is about. So you know, we can twist this into any situation that you want, but to think about healthcare in very siloed fashions is an error because that is not how we experience the delivery of the healthcare in this state. You have to have access to those very critical services to preserve your health. And that is what this bill is getting at. Access to healthcare in the very and many ways in which that health care and those services are delivered to Nevadans. So if cancer screenings are a problem, then you, as a member of this body, may vote no on this bill. And that is something that I guess you can reconcile. But that is not something that I can reconcile. I know that having access, frankly, to adequate health care saved not only my life, but saved my last baby's life. And I would not be standing here as a mom of 3 boys if I didn't have access to adequate health care. And you cannot shut off one lever of that and hope that everyone else is going to have that same experience. So if the delivery of healthcare is something that we can say we care about and we want to preserve, then these are grant dollars that may or may not be awarded, that have to be applied for, and that preserve the access to healthcare throughout this state, and again, are going to bring in these centers of medical excellence and to allow for physicians and to allow for hospitals and credentialing to happen here in this state, which, by the way, are things that we absolutely must do and are necessary. So I would urge everyone's support of this bill.
Any further remarks? Secretary will open the roll. Anyone wish to change their vote? Secretary will close the roll. Yeses are 15 and noes are 6. The bill has received the constitutional majority, is declared passed and ordered to the Assembly.
That concludes Order Business 13 and the business of the desk of this legislative day.
Order Business 16, remarks on the floor. Senator Cannizzaro.
Thank you, Mr. President. We here in the Senate intend to have a busy day tomorrow to the extent that we are able to continue to move legislation. So just as a reminder to all the members of this body and members of committee, that as we continue to receive legislation and or introduce legislation, we will be hard at work here in the Senate body with work that we have in front of us to do. And with that, Mr. President, I would move that we stand in adjournment until the hour of 10 a.m. On Friday, November 14th, 2025.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. We are adjourned.